subscribe, and ring the bell. Support the channel. Stay strong.
Hey guys, Paul here. Welcome to another late start of Repairing the Manosphere. This is episode 8. Tonight we're going to be talking about fathers quite a bit. Just a reminder to everybody, we're talking to the 5% of the 5% here. Basically guys who took the red pill and didn't want to turn it into grievance or into sociopathy. Which leaves a pretty small population of guys these days, but fortunately you're among them, and I'm glad to have you here. There may be a technical issue. I'm going to warn everybody in advance. I've got Bradley from A Male Space standing by to come on to be interviewed, but there has been an issue going back and forth. He's on a Mac machine. For some reason, it's not really wanting to communicate very well between us, and we've had problems getting him set up. If he is not able to appear, we'll have him back on here for another discussion on something else. And then we'll go ahead and bring Brian on at the end here if Bradley can't appear, and we'll get started on that. Again, we're going to be talking about fathers, and the normal conversation around this, generally for social purposes, goes something to the effect of fathers are walking out, they're abandoning, they don't take care of their kids. I mean, the typical misandric stuff is what society is built around. And then we have the other side of the narrative in the red pill community that talks a lot about, the corruption in the family courts, how fathers are forced out of the homes, how mothers frequently after a divorce or even before divorce starts will alienate the children from the father and continue that after the divorce is over, sabotaging their relationship. And that undermines fatherhood as well. But we're going to take a little bit different perspective about this tonight, and I'm going to be talking about the fundamental, very important aspects of fatherhood that we can't get around. It's a crucial role in the lives of children that has unfortunately been undermined. But part of that undermining comes from fathers themselves. But rest assured, I'm not going to be talking about the typical stuff about deadbeat dads or any of that garbage for this audience. We're going to talk about simping, and we're going to talk about princesses, and that is going to be the focus of this talk. With that, Brian, if you could go ahead and bring up the header image, I'd appreciate it. And we're going to start off with this reading. Fathers are not optional accessories in the lives of children. They are not backup parents, visitors, household utilities, or sentimental figures to be appreciated on holidays and ignored the rest of the year. Fathers are formative. They shape how children understand fear, responsibility, power, accountability, empathy, sexuality, competence, and the world beyond the protected boundaries of childhood. A child does not arrive in life ready for adulthood. He arrives dependent, impulsive, emotionally raw, and largely groomed by appetite, fear, need, and immediate sensation. She does not know how to tolerate frustration, interpret disappointment, restrain anger, face risk, accept correction, or consider the inner life of another person. These capacities have to be built. They are not installed automatically by age, education, or a culture that increasingly confuses emotional suppression or emotional expression with maturity. A father helps build them. This does not mean that fathers are perfect. It does not mean that mothers don't matter. It means fathers bring something distinct and irreplaceable to the developmental life of a child. A father helps a child cross the bridge from dependence to agency. He teaches a child that life is not merely something to be felt, but something to be faced. He helps a child learn that the world contains other people, real limits, hard consequences, and opportunities that require courage. And if we could go to image 1 now, Brian. The first gift a father gives his children is challenge. Children naturally seek comfort. That is part of being a child, but comfort is not the same thing as preparation. A child endlessly protected from frustration, difficulty, disappointment, and risk does not become strong, he becomes fragile. She becomes dependent. Childhood cannot be treated as a permanent emotional nest. The purpose of parenting is not to preserve helplessness, it is to guide a child toward competence. Fathers often do this through play long before the lesson can be explained in words. The father who tosses a child into the air, wrestles on the living room floor, races across the yard, teaches a child to ride a bike, or lets him climb a tree a little higher than mom is comfortable with, is not merely entertaining the child, he's introducing the child to the edge of uncertainty. The child feels fear, excitement, tension, and risk, but all within the presence of a trusted man. The child discovers, I was scared, but I made it. That is not a small lesson. It's the beginning of courage. The kind of fatherly activation teaches, this kind of fatherly activation teaches children that fear is not automatically a stop sign. Discomfort is not an emergency. Anxiety is not an excuse. Failure is not an identity. A child who learns those lessons early carries them into school, friendship, sports, work, marriage, and conflict. He is more likely to try again. She is more likely to endure disproportion or disappointment without collapsing into self-pity. Both are more likely to understand that strength is developed through contact with reality. A father says, in word and deed, you can handle more than you think. That message matters for boys. A boy needs male expectation. He needs to see how a man handles pressure, anger, fatigue, defeat, fear, and obligation. He needs correction from a man who loves him and approval from a man who expects something from him. He needs to learn that manhood is not merely biology. It is earned through competence, restraint, responsibility, and purpose. But daughters need fatherly challenge as well, and this is where many fathers, often acting from what they think is love, make a serious mistake. They treat daughters like princesses. At first glance, that may sound affectionate or even cute and adorable. A father calls his daughter his princess. He spoils her, protects her from pain, softens discipline, excuses emotional outbursts, and rushes in to the rescue. He holds boys to standards of grit and accountability while treating his daughter as someone whose discomfort must be managed before her character is developed. The motive may be love, but the effect is often harm. A daughter treated like a princess learns that love means exemption. Male affection is proven through indulgence, and her emotions outrank other people's boundaries. Accountability becomes something for others, especially males, while her distress functions as a kind of moral override. None of this has to be taught explicitly. Children are excellent readers of patterns. They know who gets corrected, excused, challenged, and rescued. If a boy is told to get back up while the girl is rushed into comfort, both children receive a lesson. He is being prepared for agency. She is being prepared for dependency. He is expected to master fear. She is protected from it. He is held accountable. She is treated as though accountability is an injury. That dependency may later be mistaken for femininity, but it is not femininity, it's underdevelopment. This is where princess fathering connects directly to the romantic model. Romanticism trains men to place women on a pedestal and call it love. Princess fathering brings that pedestal into childhood. The daughter becomes the first woman a man worships under the banner of affection. He treats her emotions as sacred, her discomfort as a crisis, her correction, and her approval as reward. Without meaning to, he teaches her to expect reverence without reciprocity, protection without responsibility, and comfort without effort. That can damage her psychosocial development. It weakens frustration tolerance, reduces accountability, and distorts her expectations of relationships. Criticism becomes betrayal. Boundaries become abandonment. Ordinary disappointment becomes injustice. It makes her less prepared for work, marriage, motherhood, friendship, and adult life because adult life treats very few as royalty for very long. A father who challenges his daughter is not withholding affection. He's affirming her dignity. He's telling her, I believe you can think, endure, recover, and take responsibility for yourself. Confidence does not come from praise alone. It comes from remembered competence. Children become confident by doing hard things and learning again and again that difficulty can be survived. Without difficulty, confidence has no foundation. Without accountability, competence has no reason to grow. Without agency, the child remains a child. There's another cost to the princess treatment, and it falls heavily on boys. A boy does not learn how to treat women merely by listening to what his father says. He learns by watching what his father does, how he responds to female tears, anger, demands, disappointment, and irresponsibility. He noticed whether his father holds women accountable or reflexively serves them. He sees whether his father has a spine in the presence of female emotion. He sees whether his sister is treated as a developing moral agent or a household deity. If the father continually places his daughter at the center, excuses her behavior, softens consequences, and trains the household to accommodate her feelings, the son is not merely watching indulgent parenting. He is watching simping role modeled by the most important man in his life. Simping in this sense is not kindness, provision, or love. It is male self-erasure in pursuit of female approval or emotional peace. It is the habit of treating female comfort as more important than the truth, fairness, boundaries, or dignity. Princess fathering teaches the daughter that she is loved by being served. It teaches the son that his role in relation to females is to absorb, excuse, and rescue. That lesson can follow a boy into manhood and fester there. The son absorbs the message that male needs are secondary, male pain matters less, male anger is dangerous, while female anger is meaningful. And male accountability is mandatory, while female accountability is optional and usually avoided. The safest way to exist around women becomes appeasement. Later, that boy may become the man who apologizes when he's done nothing wrong, tolerates contempt because he was trained to call that tolerance sensitivity, and interprets female displeasure of evidence as of his own failure. He works, pays, provides, listens, absorbs, and sacrifices while expecting little more than occasional approval in return. To maintain denial, he pretends his obsequiousness is good character and that his weakness is strength. This is not a minor developmental matter. It is a template for adult pair bonding. The romantic model tells men that love is proven through pursuit, sacrifice, rescue, pedestalizing, and tolerance of female entitlement. Princess fathering gives boys that model before they ever even date. The girl is centered, the boy is burdened. Her emotions govern the room. His job is to manage the room around them. Her approval is assumed to have value. His approval must be earned. She is trained for exemption. He is trained for submission. Both are being miseducated. A father who loves his daughter should not teach his son to kneel. He should teach both children that good character demands reciprocity, dignity belongs to both sexes, accountability is not male only, and emotional intensity is not a substitute for moral responsibility. He should model tenderness without servility, protection without worship, leadership without tyranny, and affection without surrender. In my opinion, the number one obstacle to that happening is men who follow a romantic rather than a masculine ethic. And if you would bring up image 2, please. The second crucial gift that a father gives is moral structure. Children are not born empathetic in the mature sense. They are born with the capacity for attachment, imitation, distress, and emotional response, but real empathy requires development. A child has to learn that other people are real in the same way he is real. Other people have pain, fear, dignity, and limits. Other people are not props in the drama of the child's feelings. That lesson is taught through boundaries. A father teaches boundaries when he says no, requires a child to tell the truth, makes a child repair damage, apologize sincerely, keep a promise, finish a task, wait a turn, or consider the effect of his behavior on someone else. He teaches that feelings matter, but they do not cancel obligations. Anger may be real, but it does not justify cruelty. Hurt may be real, but it does not excuse revenge. Disappointment may be real, but it does not entitle destruction. This is one of the foundations of empathy. Empathy is not necessarily softness. It isn't emotional indulgence. It is the disciplined recognition that another person is not an object. A child who is only comforted may become fluent in her own feelings. A child who is also held accountable learns that other people have feelings too. Princess treatment interferes with that lesson. If a daughter is repeatedly taught that her feelings are the family's highest priority, empathy can't develop in a balanced way. She may become highly sensitive to her own distress while remaining underdeveloped in her awareness of what her distress cost others. She may experience discomfort as injury and correction as cruelty, expecting others to regulate themselves around her emotions while never learning to regulate her emotions around others. This is not emotional intelligence, it's emotional stunting. It also teaches boys a false version of empathy. The boy watching this is taught that empathy means abandoning his own boundaries, that being a good man means prioritizing female distress above fairness, and that compassion requires compliance. In the romantic model, the woman's feeling becomes the man's assignment. If she is upset, he's responsible. If she is disappointed, he has failed. If she's unhappy, he must fix it. That isn't empathy either. It's just familial conditioning, a kind of brainwashing. True empathy requires recognizing the reality of another person without surrendering the reality of the self. A father teaches that when he requires all of his children, sons and daughters alike, to consider the impact of their behavior on others, he refuses to let one child's feelings become the law of the household. He insists that apology, repair, patience, and self-restraint are human obligations, not male obligations. A father can interrupt the pattern. He can say with force and love at the same time, I know you're angry, but you may not do that. He can say, I understand you're hurt, but you're still responsible for what you did next. He can say, you do not get to destroy something because you're disappointed. Those are not minor household corrections. They are key aspects of civilization taught by fathers at kitchen tables, in the driveway, in the backseat of the car, and at the edge of a child's tantrum. This matters because we now live in a culture increasingly unwilling to turn grievance into identity and identity into permission, increasingly willing, to turn grievance into identity and identity into permission and even violence. Many people no longer merely disagree with opponents, they dehumanize them. The other person is not mistaken, he is evil. He is not to be answered, he's to be erased. At the extreme edge of this mentality is what might be called our modern assassination culture, the celebration or moral laundering of violence against people deemed acceptable targets. No serious person would reduce such a phenomenon to one cause: political extremism, social isolation, ideological propaganda, mental instability, online tribalism, institutional distrust, and media incentives all matter. But father absence is absolutely part of the moral vacuum in which such thinking grows. Where fathers are absent, weak, pushed out, or treated as irrelevant, many children lose a primary training ground for disciplined strength, restrained aggression, accountability, and empathy that comes directly from paternal influence. Excuse me. A father does not merely tell a child to be nice, he teaches the child what to do with aggression, that anger can be felt without being obeyed. Strength is not proven by destruction. An opponent remains human. Resentment is not a moral credential, and justice and revenge are not the same thing. Without that formation, many young people have become emotionally intense but morally undeveloped. They may know how to accuse but not reflect, how to demand justice but not restrain vengeance. They become fluent in grievance and incompetent in conscience. A society that sidelines fathers should not be surprised when more of its young people struggle with empathy, limits, self-command, and peaceful coexistence with people they dislike. And if you'll bring up image 3, please. The third crucial gift a father gives is identity. Children learn who they are partly by learning who their parents are. Fathers help sons and daughters understand what men are, what male strength is, how men should behave under pressure, and what kind of relationships are possible between men and women. This is not abstract. It is absorbed through daily life. Children watch how a father speaks, works, handles stress, interacts with their mother, keeps his word, responds to insult, uses authority, apologizes, protects, and provides. For boys, a father is often the first living map of manhood. A son needs more than affection. He needs orientation. He needs to see a man get up and go to work when he is tired, reject mistreatment rather than enable it, and accept responsibility without theatrical self-pity. He needs to see that male life is not reducible to appetite, conquest, service, or submission. A boy without that map may go looking for manhood elsewhere, and the modern marketplace is full of counterfeit versions. Performative toughness, sexual boasting, ideological rage, criminal glamour, digital addiction, simping, and endless grievance. For daughters, a father is also a map. He teaches her what male presence feels like. He teaches her whether masculine strength is boundaried or chaotic, protective or absent, principled or easily manipulated. A daughter with a present, competent father learns that male approval is not mysterious, that male strength is not threatening, and that her own worth does not depend on performing helplessness. She learns how a man who loves her can also hold her accountable. That is a gift she will carry into friendships, courtship, marriage, and adulthood. But the father who treats his daughter like a princess gives both children a distorted map. She learns that men exist to serve her, even in the most trivial of matters. Instead of mutual respect, she learns romantic entitlement. Instead of cooperation, she learns testing. Instead of seeing love as reciprocal, she turns it into narcissistic demand. The boy watching this receives the matching distortion. To him, male-female relationships become moral hierarchies in which men earn affection by sacrificing dignity. That is simping before the boy even has a word for it. A boy learns this pattern when dad excuses his daughter's disrespect while punishing the same behavior in his son. When he waves off poor character as that's just how girls are. When female upset makes him visibly nervous. When he mistakes servitude to his daughter's moods for love. And when the household standard becomes responsibility for boys and special exemption for girls. A girl raised that way becomes a woman disappointed by reality. Employers will not treat her like a princess, although many employers too have become fearful of women's wrath. Friends will tire of one-sided emotional demands. Husbands and boyfriends will eventually have limits that come as an abrupt shock to her sensibilities. Children will not orbit her comfort. Life will ask from her what her father did not. Patience, humility, accountability, endurance, and the ability to see other people clearly. Does any of this sound familiar? A boy raised beside that pattern may become a man disappointed by relationships. He may enter adult life believing that love requires self-abandonment, tolerate disrespect because he mistakes it for normal female behavior, and surrender boundaries because he never saw his father enforce them. He may become angry later, not because women taught him to simp, but because his father did. That anger can become combustible. A boy trained into servility may eventually discover that servility does not produce love, respect, or loyalty. Without a deeper model of manhood, he may swing from worship to resentment, from pedestalizing women to condemning them. This is one reason fathers matter so much. A father can teach his son how to love women without worshiping them, respect women without submitting to them, and maintain boundaries without becoming hostile. That is, if the father is not a living example of doing all this the wrong way out of deference to the romantic model. That is why indulging a daughter is not the same thing as honoring her. To honor her is to prepare her, to believe she can become strong, wise, self-governing, and fair, to love her enough to tell her no. A father who never tells his daughter no, nor does not give her the world, he's just leaving her unprepared for it. And he's teaching his son to pay the price. This is why a father absence is not a small social inconvenience. It's a profound developmental loss. The research literature does not support simplistic claims that every child is without a father is doomed, or that every bad outcome can be traced to father absence alone. Some mothers do heroic work under difficult conditions, but most do not. Many children overcome enormous deficits. Many father-present homes are still troubled. Human development is complex, but complexity is not an excuse for denial. Across decades of research, father absence is repeatedly correlated with negative psychosocial outcomes in children, adolescents, and young adults. These include higher risk of behavioral problems, delinquency, depression, hostility, poor emotional regulation, academic struggles, substance abuse, early sexual behavior, and difficulty forming stable relationships. Poverty, parental conflict, family instability, community violence, poor schools, and other adverse childhood experiences often travel with it. But the correlation is persistent enough, broad enough, and developmentally coherent enough that only ideological blindness would dismiss it. Father absence removes more than a second income or a male body in the house. It removes developmental pressure and support, masculine modeling, accountability, a bridge to the outside world, a regulator of aggression, and a witness to the child's growth. It removes someone who can say, I know this is hard, and you're going to do it anyway. That absence can leave boys unsure how to become men and girls unsure how to understand men. It can leave children more vulnerable to peer validation, ideological capture, emotional impulsivity, sexual confusion, resentment, dependency, and distorted relationship templates. It can weaken agency itself, the belief that life happens to them, that feelings define reality, and that accountability is imposed by enemies rather than accepted by adults. Again, I ask you, does any of this sound familiar? The irony is that a father can be physically present and still create some of these deficits if he refuses to father with backbone. The absent father leaves a hole by being forced out and alienated. The gynocentric servile father sabotages of his own volition. He teaches the child that life can be faced. Or I should say, a father's role then can be stated plainly. He teaches the child that life can be faced. He teaches the child that other people are real. He teaches the child that identity is built through responsibility. These three lessons, these gifts, are inseparable. Challenge without empathy can become hardness. Empathy without boundaries can become indulgence. Identity without responsibility can become narcissism. A good father weaves them together. He calls the child outward into the world, but not as a predator, a victim, a princess, a simp, or a passive consumer of comfort. He calls the child outward as a developing moral agent. That's why fathers matter. They stand between infancy and adulthood. Behind the child is the protected world of dependence. Ahead is the adult world of labor, risk, competition, love, heartbreak, consequence, obligation, and death. A father helps the child cross that distance. He does not promise that life will be easy. He does not pretend the world will arrange itself around the child's comfort. He does not confuse love with rescue or discipline with cruelty. He prepares, and preparation is one of the deepest forms of love. And that concludes the opening monologue, and I'm happy to say we actually have Bradley here from A Male Space. Welcome. So glad to have you. Yeah, I see you and I hear you. Listen, let's get into this a little bit. First, I'd just like to measure some of you got to listen to all of that, some of your responses to the ideas that you heard, what you were thinking as you were listening to this.
Well,
and as a father.
Yes, as a father and also someone who was fatherless and also knows other fatherless males. So this hits home with me especially, and that's why I'm glad to discuss this topic with you. Because even not to disclose too much of my personal life, but I will disclose some, is that this sort of dynamic when a father is absent, like you said, a boy without a father in a single mother home, even if the single mother, my mom did what she could to the extent that she could do it. She really was she was working a full-time job. She was working a part-time job.
Let me interrupt. I'm sorry, just for a second. If you're tapping on your desk, it's coming all the way through.
How about now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, sorry about that. So what can happen also is that as men, men who are acting like men and acting like husbands and fathers in the household the way they should, one of the positive benefits of having a man in the home is to temper female anxiety. And being that my dad was not there to do that, it becomes a hotbed of emotion and bitterness. And sometimes in the case of myself, it was not intentional. I know that it was unintentional. It almost seems as if, like you said, the boy is now responsible for the mother's temperament or mood. That sort of unhealthy dynamic happens because there's no relief from the stress of a mother who's overworked, taking care of not only two children, two males she's taking care of. So when it gets to the teenage years and boys become restless and need guidance in the years, I would say from 14 to 22 years old are the most fragile, life-forming years of a male's trajectory. That is the time for a dad of all, especially in that window, to be there and do his job. That's what hit home with me that you said. And also the social pathologies, because every social pathology is linked to fatherlessness, the ones that you listed, I mean, to name all of them, it's just simply too large of a list to go down. We could say truancy, early sexual behavior, teenage pregnancy, high school dropouts, teen runaways, gang membership, drug use. I mean, involvement in certain dangerous subcultures.
Even suicide.
Yes, also suicide, yes, mental illness. And as you were speaking, I could say, and I do not mind saying this, I'm not here for a woe is me story. I'm here to say that I've witnessed this up close because those social pathologies existed in my own home. Meaning if we could go through the checklist, I wouldn't check all that. But between me and my brother, there are several checks there in terms of, let's say, substance abuse. My brother was incarcerated for 3 years for dealing drugs. So that also with myself, I also dealt with extreme depression as a young male. And these social pathologies, when you stack them up into the fatherless crisis, considering that 1 1/4 homes are fatherless, and you stack this up into society very broadly, this is very dangerous to a society, in addition to everything that you said. Meaning that, as Stephen Baskerville has said, and also Dr. Howard Schwartz, we are moving into a fatherless society. And also, even when fathers are present, it is almost as if their authority now, I mean, you know the case that fatherly authority in the home, male authority in the home has been weakened. So even in some cases I've heard where Devlin and Dr. Baskerville were saying cases of men who cannot exert their authority in the house because they're threatened by divorce papers. If the wife is bullying this man and he doesn't do as she says, well, she has the divorce papers over his head. So, I mean, this is a very in-depth topic, and that's what I have to say. And also, I was definitely reminded of what you were saying. With all of my heroes, including you're one of them, I don't mind saying that you, Devlin, Baskerville, Dr. Amneas, all of them pointing out these social pathologies of fatherlessness for years already.
Yeah, I mean, it's been there, and I think we're seeing it play out socially right now. I think there's the rise of communist ideology that's happening now in our culture. I think is tied to fatherless culture, and I think it's important to point out that when we talk about a fatherless culture, we're not saying necessarily that every home is without a father. There are kids with fathers at home, but all their peers are products of divorce and fatherless homes, and the set of values that comes out of those peer groups is shaped by feminine influence more than anything else.
Yes, I think we should touch upon that also. It is worth saying, if we're going to speak about fatherhood in the current day and age, feminism has to be mentioned, because feminism is utterly hostile to fatherhood. And anybody who says, I've heard many people talk about feminism on an ongoing basis in the social media space. People really need to wrap it around their heads that the foremost aim of feminism, one of the foremost aims, is the removal of fathers. It is 100% ownership of reproduction and sexual freedom. And when there's sexual liberation also, which the feminists are the foremost enforcers of sexual revolution, there is going to be a great deal of fatherlessness. There's no way around that.
And I was referring not necessarily to just feminism,
Yeah.
but also to feminine values. And
Yes.
again, I'm going to, my age isn't a secret. I'm going to reveal more of it here. I was raised in a time where, if you displeased your mother, the first thing you were going to hear was wait till your father gets home. There was a standard, even with strong masculine men in the home, that the objective had to be to take care of mother's emotional world, make sure that she's happy.
Mhm.
And if you didn't, the father would come home and act as the enforcer and brutalize you for failing to take care of mom in the way she wanted.
Yes, that actually, I'm not surprised that occurs. It didn't occur for me because my father was out of my home from 13 years old, and even when he was physically present, he was not only negligent but also extremely mentally ill. So I never experienced that, but I experienced the dynamic nevertheless, meaning that my mom was not doing this intentionally, but I mean, her stress was high trying to keep this household running with the jobs, with the job, the full-time teaching job and the part-time job, and I could even see it in myself when I'm stressed that the patience for people in general runs thin. But I mean, I have a lot of buffers here. I do have a stable, two-parent household here, but I can just imagine one person doing the job of two people. And if that's a mother, a female, that stress is going to become very high. And the boys have to deal with that. And pretty much if there's no buffer, what almost seems like the boy interprets it that I'm responsible for my mom's emotions. And sometimes even if a mom is not doing it intentionally, she'll make you responsible for them.
Well, that's the romantic ethic. I mean, we have basically socialized women into this ideology, and it doesn't matter if they're women in 2026 or 1956. Sort of the same mentality that this is all about men are supposed to be taking care of me and making sure that I don't experience discomfort or emotional upheaval. I wonder. I wanted to ask you, as a guy who grew up without a father in the home, do you recall during your teen years what it was like for you, maybe seeing some of your peers who actually did have fathers
Mm-hmm.
in the home and watching the way they interacted with each other and what that sort of how that landed on you at that sort of tender age in your life?
Deep envy and sadness. I mean, deep envy, like blood boiling envy. Yes, I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not an envious person now, but I don't blame myself for being envious because I wanted a dad and I wanted a stable household. I mean, my household was an atmosphere that I wouldn't say physically abusive, but I would say a household of bitterness and misery. That's what I would say it was. And I'm not trying to have anybody feel sorry for me, or I'm not doing the woe is me thing. And also, I mean, there's limits of what I could say here, but even after when there was another man who moved in, that dynamic, and all I'm going to say here is that, not in detail, that dynamic was not good either. So pretty much it was, let's say, and also my brother, because he was acting out in a very, a criminal way, that led to other tension in my household also. I mean, to have a young boy, a teenager, dealing drugs in a home and having detectives looking at our home, our apartment. So I could say that for me, one point is no father, going to a very, very overpopulated high school in Queens, which was over 4,000 plus students. I would say that was very, very disorienting for me, meaning that there's no, for example, if I could deal with, let's say, a extremely socioeconomically diverse, overpopulated high school, that is hard to navigate in general,
Right.
especially in the 90s in latchkey kid Queens. That was like a hard time. I mean, it was just very difficult, I think. And even speaking to other adults that are my age that I keep in contact with, or friends, I never knew that they even shared some of the same sentiment that I did. And some of them were fatherless, or some of them had fathers that were physically present, but were not doing their job. But that's really that recipe, for example, the extremely tense household, the overpopulated high school, those were just bad recipe for me, but I'm here now. I mean, I'm a professional with advanced degree. I made it through, and my brother, he's fine now. But I mean, to have a son, even as a mother, to have a son that serves 3 years somewhere in a youth detention facility, and also with the first 6 weeks of those in Rikers Island, 6 weeks Rikers Island in the 90s. If you were there, as
not a good place.
Yeah. So I mean, you could see that this stacked on top of each other, meaning the fatherlessness. And look, I don't know, as you said, not every fatherless person gets involved, acquires these social pathologies, but nearly everybody who has them is fatherless. So it's pretty much how it goes. Well, almost all of them, not everybody, but I'm saying that's the trend. So again, not to belabor it, that's my answer. Yes.
Okay. Well, and I also want to offer something from the other side of the fence here as a guy who grew up with a father in the home who was consistent and stable, but also very much a simp in the classic sense, in that he worshiped the ground that my mother walked on. To offend her was an end of times event. He was a guy who suffered through 2 wars, got grievously injured in both of them, and still suited up and showed up every day. But I ended up getting tangled up with drugs when I was young and bad influences. And I think it was in large part because my father's focus was so much on her that it took him away from his kids. He was a disciplinarian. I mean, you get sort of attention when you screwed up. And when that's the only attention delivered to a child in a home from a father, they'll screw up just to get the attention.
Yes. Actually, when I was younger, I mean, I was joking with Helen Smith one time that I went and told her that I'm a square, and I'm thankful for being a square, because if I was not a square, I would probably be in big trouble. Because even though I knew right from wrong, I was almost like born ethical. Like I was always thinking of what's right and wrong. I do have still, I'm not virtue signaling here. I am a sensitive person. I do have empathy and sympathy. So that was always my nature to begin with. Even if I was fatherless, I didn't turn out to be a bully or mistreat people. I actually felt sorry for people that were mistreated. So, I mean, I had that sense of right and wrong, but even as a young person, being that there was such a big gang scene in the 5 boroughs of New York City, I'm talking like single digits when I was aware of gangs, and also the big graffiti scene throughout the boroughs of New York City, that I could feel this pull towards it, even until, let's say, my early teens. And I know why I had a pull to it, even though I was not involved. The reason why I had a pull to it is because I was looking for something also. I was looking for other males that had my back. I had other males that would stick up for me in a time of being threatened or bullied myself. But I mean, I never got involved in that. And most of the gang scene or graffiti scene had died by the time that I entered high school. But that really was a pull for me, and almost like a mesmerization of it. Because these guys had, to me, even though some of them did wind up living, normal middle-class lives, others became involved in other harsher crimes or prison sentences, that these people look strong to me. And when you don't have people that are strong around you, like Stephen said in his book, Who Lost America, if there's no masculinity, there's no male role models around, it's going to assert itself one way or another. And it's not going to be nice under those circumstances.
Well, help me understand something here. You stumbled onto a topic that I found long confusing, because when you describe just these tidbits about your childhood, father chronically absent, mental health issues there, rough school, rough times, all of this, you should be in prison or dead. How did that not happen?
Again, it's my sense of right and wrong. And despite being mentally drawn to the activities that I was just discussing, I still wanted to have a life and not get in trouble and not be in dangerous positions. I just did not want to be in that. And I had very good self-restraint. And also, actually, a good example of this, without diverting too much off the topic, is that there was even a home that I hung out in for a while. Didn't get too involved. I mean, was in the scene a little bit. There was even a fatherless home. And I rekindled a friendship with this guy whose home I went to. You wouldn't even think there was an adult living there at all. It was a fatherless home. Not only that, his mother was stressed and she was working the night shift. Sometimes you wouldn't even know if there was an adult present in his home at all. And all kinds of crazy things went on in this home. I mean, actually things that happened that would make some of the current Manospherians green with envy, if you know what I'm trying to say. We know what happened in that. a lot of fun that
that doesn't take much. But.
Okay. A lot of fun that I don't recommend, even though it felt good at the time. But really, that also says something about the daughters there, about the daughters that were there in the house. Also, meaning that you think to yourself, what these young daughters were doing in this unsupervised home, that would mortify me if my daughter was in that position. And we could go in all kinds of directions. And even the fatherless daughters or daughters that I had known that had fathers that were checked out, the dangerous and stupid positions that they were in, I can attribute that from having an airheaded dad or no dad. And some of them admitted to me. And some of them I could even list that are 3 women that I know from hanging out with the wrong crowd. Now, could this be linked to fatherlessness? I think it can. Are no longer with us. So it goes both ways. Whether males and females who do not have fathers, like we said, not in every case, but often enough wind up in very bad situations.
Yes, they do. And again, we don't want to necessarily beat it to death. Yes. But I mean, when you look at the true psychosocial effects of father absence and fathers being pushed out of the home, it's catastrophic. What happens to kids in that is just horrendous. And we seem to be a society that's watching this happen to us every day and doing absolutely nothing but aggravating the problem more and more with time.
Yes. I think that's why we can't get anything done. I mean, this also crosses over to simping, meaning that these current marriage laws and whatever else it is that is going on, even with the economy, with feminist legislation over the economy, we can't get anything done because of collective simping. That's what I think, actually. Maybe that's a little too simplistic, but that's why I think that we can't get anything done.
I don't think it is. I think we have set up, and again, I draw all this back to the romantic model, this idea of elevating women above in importance in men. It's something we've been doing a couple of 100 years society-wide now, and our law has come to reflect it. That's where we get our family courts. And I want to address that for a moment. It's almost impossible to imagine having a discussion about modern fatherhood without addressing something about the family courts. I was a little cautious about that because I didn't want to beat the dead horse too much. I mean, for instance, we know the family courts are corrupt. We know that the family courts know they're corrupt.
Yes.
We know that they know what they're doing and they like doing it. They love divorce raping men, especially in family courts. They like pushing fathers out of the home. They like enabling mothers to alienate the fathers. These are not accidents of a system with kinks in it that things go wrong. And I think we have to bring it up because I know there's going to be however many people are in the audience tonight or that watch this after we're done. There's going to be men there that are fresh out of this absolutely barbaric system whose lives have been wrecked and destroyed, who are going to say, you got to talk about family courts. You can't. That's the reason I can't be a father. The court won't let me anymore. So if you would, let's spend a couple of minutes on that. And you've had a lot of great discussions with Stephen Baskerville, who I consider probably has to be the world's foremost expert on the history of family law, what's happening with fathers. What has that interaction with Stephen done for your understanding of the problem? Has it shaped it any? And when you look at our family court system now, what do you see?
Well, I could say that one of the reasons why I'm in this space, I mean, why I decided to start a YouTube channel is because of Dr. Baskerville's influence on me, meaning, again, I'm trying to be concise here. Like I discovered Sexual Utopia and Powered by Roger Devlin. And in that book, he has the essay called Rotating Polyandry, which was a part of it. The second part of that essay was a review of Dr. Baskerville's Taken into Custody. And that's how I found out about Dr. Baskerville. And then I looked him up and I said, I have to talk to this guy one day. You know, I have to meet this guy. I have to talk to him because I'm fatherless myself. And, you know, I personally don't want to see other people be fatherless. That's why I personally don't want this crisis to go on because I've experienced what it's like. So now, are you asking me what I've learned? Because it's so much that I've learned that it's
I'm just interested in whatever
okay.
comes to mind when I ask the question. I don't have a prescripted answer, that's for sure.
Okay, no. Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to know like which direction I should go in. Okay, I'll say anything that comes to mind. For example, like I didn't know the severity of it. I did not even understand just how bad this is. I mean, we all always hear, and I've said this in many conversations with people, X Spaces, conversations offline, in my videos, that people have to understand something, is that when people say it's half my shit, no. It's more than half your shit. It could be your life. So when people keep on saying 50% of my stuff, well, I always heard that even before I even heard of this sort of material by Devlin and Baskerville. Okay, yeah, you got to pay child support. You got to pay alimony, the whole myth of the deadbeat dad thing, that whole thing. But then as I was reading this material from Devlin and Baskerville, and I was mortified. I mean, men have their professional licenses taken away. They even have their recreational licenses taken away from, let's say, a fishing license or a hunting license. They have their cars booted. They have passports, their movements surveilled. Not only that, if I have it right, some of the payments are not based on what the man is making. It's what the courts think that he can make. Well, what if you can't make it? And it's to the point
it's called imputed income, and they do it all the time. Here's what you're supposed to make, so that's what you got to pay.
Yes, and I didn't know that we had, let's say, I'm not sure the amount, but I mean the amount of men that probably are incarcerated because they cannot pay child support. They just cannot pay it. I remember even in Taken into Custody, there was a case that Stephen covered in which a man had malnutrition because he could no longer afford to feed himself. I mean, this is what comes up here. And that's really, answer your question, what I learned about sexual politics, feminism, and the family law, this marriage law. It's really, it's once you go down this rabbit hole, it's never ending, and it's way more severe than people think. And also, as you covered in my discussions with you, the increased outsized chance of suicide for men that are divorced. So these are really, really catastrophic, life destroying, family destroying, children wrecking. That's the sort of system it is.
Yeah, I think to put it in a nutshell, when I look at, we were just doing some documentary work with Pearl up in New Jersey, and we went into outside one of the family courts, and it just struck me as I saw people going in and out of these revolving doors in this courthouse. This is actually an institution designed to destroy families. I mean, normally you would think in a sensible world, in a world where people can reason that, divorce is unfortunate, but sometimes it's unavoidable. So if we're going to bring the law into it, let's look at how we restructure the family in a way that genuinely is in the best interest of the child and all parties concerned. Certainly putting fathers in jail for being broke doesn't seem to be a really good idea in terms of what the children need. But they don't do anything like that. They operate under the guise of in the best interest of the children, but what they really do is ruthlessly destroy families. They destroy children. They sever the father-child bond and pat themselves on the back and collect a paycheck for it. This is really what they're designed to do. It's not a side effect. It's the intention of the institution itself.
Yes, it is. It is pretty much an industry of like kidnapping and extortion. That's really what it is. It's not an understatement. It is diabolical. Yes. And I did not know just how many people until I started to talk with Stephen and read his work, just how many people profit off this. I mean, it is judges, lawyers, real estate workers, psychologists, social workers, all kinds of people profit off this, and they just want to keep the fatherless crisis going because that's their bread and butter. If you don't want a problem to stop, if you're making all this money from it, and I also, if I have it right, that states are given money, federal funding for divorces.
Yep. And, the ancillary services is something we don't talk about very often. The friends of the court and things like guardian ad litems that, the parents are divorcing. They each have lawyers and say, oh, well, we need another lawyer for the child. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's what the family needs is more lawyers to come in here and argue with each other and rack up bills and take money. It is the most disgusting thing in operation. And I have to agree with you. That is what has sunk in on me through years of observing this, is that it took me maybe 10 years of really looking at this carefully before it ever sank in on me just how bad it really is, just how terrible what we're doing is. And it's playing out on our streets in crime, in so many other ways, in academic failure. God, we've got kids graduating high school that can't read or do basic mathematics.
Yes.
And this is all tied into this. There was a time when fathers would not have permitted this to happen.
Right.
Physically would not have permitted this.
Exactly. Yes, that's true, actually. There was a time, yes, and I believe in societies in general, from my knowledge, there was a time where being a father was a high status position. Actually, you were respected because you had children and you were a father. And not only that, you kept your neighborhoods running. You had your own families. And not only that, extending beyond the nuclear family, your clan, your community, everything. And this simply is there's not a patriarchal flavor to anything anymore. I don't believe so.
And I think that our government has figured out that, and I'm not blaming feminists for that. I'm blaming our governance for this. Our government has figured out that if you disempower fathers, you can control everybody. Women will naturally align with the state, with whoever's writing a check, with state control. They're very amenable to it. Men are not so much. And men would resist government overreach as long as they had families to protect. But once their power was undermined in that area, they didn't have any reason to fight. And you can't tell me this isn't by design. This is by design. It's what our society is doing right now. And we are electing leaders. And it appears that we have a batch of them coming up in the years ahead. They're going to put this system on steroids. And we're going to have more problems than you can possibly imagine.
Yes, that's actually what we've been saying with our guests, Stephen and I, in our series, The Mansplainers. We've been saying that this can get worse, but I actually think it will get worse. That's what I believe. From what
I think it'll get much worse. I don't think we've seen near the end of how bad this is going to get. They're just getting ramped up. I want to change gears a little bit here, Bradley. No repairing the manosphere discussion would be complete without talking about the manosphere a little bit.
Yeah.
And so looking at the modern manosphere, what the manosphere has become these days, how is the manosphere helping fathers?
You see, I've taken little bits of the most prominent people in the manosphere, and maybe they are, maybe I'm not listening enough, but I think I've listened to enough to conclude, incorrect maybe I am, I could be corrected, that it is not helping fathers. And again, I'm going to sound sort of prudish. There is no way to protect fatherhood while at the same time promoting sexual gaming. It doesn't go together. Actually, sexual gaming creates fatherlessness. That's what it does. Irresponsibility and accountability, because ever since the sexual revolution, somewhere in the American mind started to forget that sex causes reproduction. And once you take away that link, yeah, right. Maybe, for example, well, I'll go forward, is that no, it's not. I don't hear anything about I don't think I've heard anything about fathering children at all. No, I can't recall. All I basically hear from the manosphere is things about so-called self-improvement, and I'm not against some self-improvement, but we know the kind of self-improvement that I think it's implied what I'm trying to say there. Grinding, hustling, 4 a.m. morning rituals, just lift, improve your appearance, and just go along with the sort of pathological behavior that we have in the sexual market today. Instead of correcting the sexual market, and actually correcting the sexual market will actually strengthen fathers, actually. Only with, as Dr. Elam said, is sexual law and order are their fathers. Right now, we're reverting to a primitive form of mating, and the manosphere just simply promotes that.
That's been my contention all along. As a matter of fact, that's why I started this podcast.
Yes.
The very raison d'etre for doing this thing is because I believe that the manosphere has totally failed in any application that is truly beneficial to men. And instead of, I mean, it even annoys me that some of these guys, and I'm not going to name names, but that some of these guys call themselves red pill, when the red pill metaphor is about escaping the matrix, not about becoming better at playing in the game.
Yes.
It's like blue pill on steroids, what is passing for the manosphere these days. And it certainly, and I agree with you, when your focus, all right, great, lift, that's fine, it's healthy, good for you. It shouldn't become the focus of your identity, but I mean, it's certainly a healthy pastime. But when so much of the attention and focus goes right back to pleasing women and appealing to them, how can you call that red pill? It totally baffles my mind that these guys are not seeing what they're doing.
Right. And I don't think that it gets respect from women. I mean, we shouldn't grovel for respect. The respect is simply a byproduct of, like you're doing here. The reason why I'm so glad that you're doing this is you're teaching men and also speaking about things like fatherhood, cultivating our own identities, our own interests, our own ambitions. You know, I hear a lot of these things, and I'm also biased from what I've heard. I cannot listen to every Manospherian. However, think that there's a dearth, and I plan on discussing it on my channel too, eventually, is that where is the focus on, again, like you said, fatherhood, or even other things, for example, career trajectories, personal finance. I mean, serious things that have to be handled that in a healthy society, fathers would teach their sons. I mean, probably a big reason why the manosphere exists is because of the fatherless crisis and the lack of patriarchal authority in society. But what they're doing is going with the honey trap of sexual liberation. That's mostly what it is. I mean, if we have to have 2 to 3 hour podcasts, and like I said to you in our first discussion about decoding, for example, figuring out the female attraction code. I mean, this is it's like that's a problem. Yes.
It gives me an opportunity for a shameless plug. In a couple of weeks here, I'm going to have Aaron Clary on. We're going to be talking about finances. We're going to be talking about things that actually matter to the well-being of men. And, getting the attention of Mary Jane Rottencrotch is not going to be on the top of our list. We're going to have other matters like tonight, like fatherhood, like finances, self-respect, all of these things that somehow have been lost in the swamp that the manosphere has become. A little more, I know that you have a personal history of being a bodybuilder. I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I think this topic is relevant, and it is a departure from talking about fathers, but semi-related. I wanted to ask you what you thought. You just see so much of the just lift bro contingent out there of, just pump more iron, just lift bro, everything will work out. As a guy who has actual experience as a bodybuilder, what's your reaction to that ethos that's out there?
Well, I didn't compete much, but I did earn a natural pro card. But I mean, even though I only didn't compete much, but I mean, it's been part of who I am for a very long time. I've been lifting for a while. You could even see there's a collage here of some pictures. And also, I think that it's great to have physical activity, to exercise, to eat well. I work in nutrition, actually. So that's all good. But I don't think, unless someone is competing and they just want to cross this bucket list item off their list to compete in something, No, that's not. There's a limit to this. It's not like the more you lift and the more muscular become, your life is going to get better. And also, I do not think that it's going to attract that many women. I mean, I think that women probably prefer a guy with an attractive, in-shape body, but just becoming more muscular, no, I don't think so. And I think it's way overrated also. If the manosphere is going to focus on just lifting, well, just lifting is, I don't think that gets many women actually, although that's not the focus of what we're talking about here. But again, there's limits. I do think that nearly all men should be involved in physical activity at least 5 hours per week, should keep their weight under control, and eat adequately. That is very important for what we're saying here, for your health, your well-being, self-respect, image, everything. Yes.
But isn't it with a lot of these guys that are the sort of the just lift bro? I get the impression it's not even really about health. It's about attracting women. At least the illusion that if I'm jacked, I'm going to attract more women. And if it's not going to attract more women, would they do it?
Well, you see, that's right. That's in line with what I'm saying, because again, people could disagree with me on these theories, whatever. I'll have my own theory. Who cares? It's really not important. I don't think in the grand scheme of things. I think lookism in general, as I told you in our first conversation, the lookism thing and the physique thing is way overblown. And also, I could be biased because, like I said, when I was younger, much younger, I'm 47 years old now. I'm going to say this frankly. Really few people even gave a shit about a physique or looks. That's not what in my younger years, that is not what attracted many women. It doesn't, and I still don't think it attracts. I think that it's overblown. That's my answer. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I can buy that. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears again and get back to fathers for a moment. I want to give you a magic wand. You look at society the way it is, and if you could be king for a day, what could we change to make this any better?
Okay. Well, okay. That's going to, again, it could be simplistic. I think that you might have even heard this before, and it could be my influences. And I've been influenced by some people. I've been influenced by my heroes. And I do believe that the biggest thing is for the divorce is having the person who's filing for no-fault divorce, that person could leave with the shirt on his or her back. So in most cases, that would be women, because women file for divorce in 90% of cases, in 90% of cases that involve children. So I'm going to go with Emnaeus's program and also Baskerville's program. That would be the program. So it would simply be having fathers have 100% custody after no-fault divorce, except for the other cases in which the man is literally at fault. Or let's say the man chooses to leave with no fault of the woman, well, he would get the same treatment.
Okay, so assumed father custody in those cases.
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea. What about getting the state out of marriage altogether?
Okay, this is another one also. This is where I could use some learning also, and I'm just going to put my thoughts out there because I'm open to learning as well. Because I cannot see another way around it, is that when people propose these solutions to the state being out of government, they invite the government in with whatever they say. I'm not trying to be hostile. I'm not trying to be combative. I'm saying I'm just trying to use reason here. For example, we've heard all kinds of things. And I actually liked Shah's statement for this. He uses the word duct tape, so I got to give credit to him. It's not my term, so I'm giving credit to Shah. Shah's watching. He came up with the duct tape thesis. I'll call it the duct tape thesis. Actually, we see all these other things kind of like workarounds, like co-parenting agreements, paternity acknowledgments, DNA testing, signing papers at the hospital, whoever gets to the hospital, and letting everybody know that I'm the dad actually. But that all involves government governance anyway. For example, I saw a post by someone here that we all know, of something on X. I don't remember the details of the X post, and I don't want to say it incorrectly, but I remember vaguely what it was. The poster said that we should get government out of marriage, but we should have 50-50 custody. Well, who enforces the custody then? If you don't have a governing institution, whether, I mean, in the old days where, I don't know, a clan or a community would like lay the smack down and say, if you steal this kid, we're getting the kid back, right? That's one way of enforcing it. We're not doing that. And then also, whether it's a church or other institution or the government itself, every other means involves a governance in itself. And you want to call it a government or not, it's still governance. For example, even in 50-50, just by common sense. Well, what if someone doesn't want to play that game and they could say, yeah, 50-50. Well, I disappear for the weekend. You can't have the kid. It's not 50-50 anymore. I'm holding on to the kid. Now what do? Now we have to call the government again. We have to call law enforcement. That's that. So there's no way. Yeah. So we have to get the government to do its job. That's what it requires.
Well, have fun with that.
But you see, this is the catch-22. You could go in a circle like this. It doesn't matter, because I mean, I remember I was in an X space with a guy, a very smart guy that I like talking to. He said something about, I don't even know the name for it. When you do like go to the hospital and you sign something, I don't know what form. That also involves governance. Everything that we're talking about here involves enforcement.
Yes, it does on one level or another, either through family law or through criminal law. I mean, if you have laws against kidnapping a child and taking it away from one of its parents, that could be handled under criminal law.
Yes, yeah.
I'm still, and I'm going to give what you said a lot of thought, but I'm still of the mind that our big mistake, well, other than practicing romance, that our big mistake was handing over pair bonding to the government to begin with. I do think you have a valid point that no matter what happens, you're going to have some sort of legal enforcement around this. I don't think there's any way of getting out of that. But the degree to which the government crawls into the bedroom these days is just beyond reason,
right,
or rhyme. I think that needs to change. The only other thing I would add to that is that I think the biggest culprit in family breakup is the romantic model. I think when marriages, and we know this, I mean, we can look at history and it's all well documented, when marriages were not based on feelings, when they were based on family interest and on community interest and on political interest and other items outside the feelings of the people in the relationship, when they were conducted that way, you didn't have a high divorce rate. It was incredibly rare. You just didn't see divorces until after we based marriage basically on the way a woman feels about the relationship.
Yes.
And now if she feels like you are the greatest thing since sliced bread in the beginning, and 5 years down the road, she thinks she hates your guts and hates the ground that you walk on, then to her, the marriage has failed. And now she can take the kid, take the assets, get out that way. I certainly think that needs to end. I don't expect it to, though. I think we're in for a very hard crash with this before it gets better.
You're 100% right, because that's another thing to hammer home also. I mean, this should be hammered home in the repairing of the manosphere. If we're going to talk about marriage going forward, this has to be mentioned, I think, over and over and over again. For example, and before I segue back into what you're saying, I even heard a lot of the guys in the manosphere say, what can marriage give me? What can marriage give me? They're actually talking from the romantic model also. I mean, they'll say, I can get sex outside of marriage. I could get love-ins and pats on the head and companionship and go on dates outside of marriage. Well, that's not what marriage is for anyway, so clearly you don't need marriage. You don't need marriage to reproduce. You don't need marriage to have sex. You don't need marriage to have a woman pat you on the head and give you companionship and accompany you to weddings and barbecues and parties. Marriage is actually for what you said, the accrual of resources, the formation of extended family with in-laws, two families coming together, also inheritance, kinship, and I believe first and foremost, establishing fatherhood. That is one of the foremost reasons for fatherhood. So that none of those have anything to do with romance. Actually, you can certainly have all the sex you want in a marriage. You can certainly have some romantic evenings if you want to call them that, but that's not what the marriage is for.
Date night.
Yeah, a date night. Fine. I'm not saying there should not be any excitement or I don't know, hanging from chandeliers or whatever you want to do or whatever, right? No one's saying that you can't do that. What I'm saying is the marriage is not, you can do that outside of marriage anyway. So that whole Manosphere thing saying, what do I need for marriage for? Well, they're not even going on the basis of what marriage was for in the first place.
And I want to point out another side to this too, Bradley. There are aspects to long-term pair bonding that are independent of marriage too, that are absolute benefits. The connection with another person, that somebody that you go through conflict resolution with, somebody that you solve problems with, that you share crisis with in life. I mean, one of the things that we went through, my wife having cancer, was incredibly sick for a long time. It was also an incredibly important building block in my life for what a long-term connection actually means. And it doesn't mean roses and date nights and any of that BS, not to me. But there is things that you cannot get outside of a long-term pair bond, psychologically and developmentally for people. I used to hear in AA all the time that relationships are God's way of showing us just how sick we really are. And and I believe that's true, but what relationships do in the long term is they show you your faults. They show you where you need to improve to be a better person, not just a better father, but to be a better human being. And it is hard to get that on your own.
Yes, it is actually. I mean, even I think I've benefited from the expectations of other people that were there before I got married. But after I got married and had children, and I've been with my wife for a considerable amount of time, I mean, she's made me better. I make her better. Even my in-laws, I think I'm an improved person because of everything, whether it's even my mother's expectations of me to raise my children in a way that my dad didn't, all kinds of things like that. And all the kinds of relationships that I met through this. I mean, I do agree with Stephen when Stephen said that marriage, actual marriage, not, actual marriage, is that it connects you to society. You can't get the sort of kinds of connections that you get from going to Little League games over and over, my daughter's dance lessons, going to a church, going to weddings of the in-laws family, my wife's side of the family, coming to events of my side of the family. You can't just get that by, quote, hanging out with a woman or dating a woman. And sometimes these men in the manosphere are dating women into, into infinity. What does it get you as a person, though? I think it's unproductive.
Well, not only dating women into infinity, but when you talk about control tactics, sexual gamesmanship, this sort of thing, I see a lot of guys sort of becoming the monster that they claim to hate. They hate women's manipulation. They hate the way they're played in relationships. So they take it and say, well, I'm going to be a player now. And I'm going to be the one in control. I think that robs a lot of life out of people. It's an unfortunate approach. It's an immoral approach. And it's something, I know I probably get some flack for this, but we don't talk about morality much in the manosphere at all. And it's sorely missing because men are moral creatures.
Yes, I actually am glad you emphasize that, because I think that morality is seriously missing from a lot of the online space, actually. Morality, we cannot have a normal functioning society without a moral code. It is impossible. And much of what the male content out there actually is immoral. It is. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. And not only immoral, but I mean, self-defeating. One of the things I'm totally convinced of is that with all the sexual gamesmanship, you're actually, and I'm beating this dead horse, you're filtering for dysfunction. The women who respond to the cheap manipulations and tactics of game, basically are going to be the more emotionally dysregulated women, the more vulnerable women, the women with abandonment issues and childhood stuff that will come out and wreck a relationship once you connect with them. So it's like, good. I mean, you guys, Rolo and the gang, you guys, for short-term connection, I'll give it to you guys. I do. If what you want is a pump and dump, then I'd say buy the Rational Male and read it cover to cover. But if you want anything more than that, if you want a significant pair bond or even just a better life for yourself, you're not going to get it running around playing puppeteer with women and tossing negs and all this sort of petty Machiavellian manipulation ploys that I see in the manosphere every day. They're promoting this stuff, and I can't see amoral philosophies assisting moral creatures.
Exactly, yes. And on the flip side of that, I mean, I'm sure you probably heard of J.D. Unwin, and J.D. Unwin, in his research into societies, and that simply really the most sexually ethical societies are the society he studied the most, the societies that were the most sexually ethical were the most rigorous, highly cultivated, sophisticated societies. So again, I'm going back to Emnaeus also because they put it in better words than I can. There is no higher civilization without sexual law and order. And what many of the people calling themselves red pillars want to push sexual disorder, which is what we're saying now. And even with the spinning plates thing, I can kind of see why a man would want to so-called spin plates, because many of us do not want to be womanless. And for many of us, being womanless we don't like that. And actually, I mean, it turns some of us very angry and resentful when we don't have a woman. I'm just going to point it out. I don't blame men for feeling that, but I could say, okay, fine. The spinning plates thing, I guess it's like an insurance policy. So you're never alone. If a woman leaves, you have another woman on.
Starts looking like insecurity.
Right, exactly. And not only insecurity, I mean, you should be able to grieve, like you and I discussed in our first conversation, that you should be able to grieve over the loss of a woman and I guess be alone for some time before you find someone else. But you should be able to deal with this upsetting your life without turning into having a nervous breakdown or calling the next woman in your phone. And that's where I could kind of empathize to a degree. But who has the time for this? The money, the mental wherewithal. Who would want to think of this all day? I don't.
Well, and your priorities, I get what you said about men being resentful if they're alone, if they feel solitude, especially in a society that tells them they have no value without a woman, reflecting that back to them. But I'm also resentful that I wasn't born a Rockefeller. We learn to get over some things right. in life and go ahead and move on. And hopefully men go ahead and move on and learn to be alone with a little more grace and a little less frustration. I think men's worst enemy is themselves in that regard, that they can't tolerate just life on their own terms as themselves. They feel incomplete without a woman there. And that to me is a signal to actually improve yourself, not to go get a woman to fill in that missing hole, because eventually, and chances are, she's not going to be there again. Then the guy crashes, his identity falls again, and he gets borderline suicidal.
Yes, exactly. You took the word right out of my mouth, because when you were discussing this right now, I'm glad you hit on that also, is because what came to my mind is the suicide risk after women leave. I mean, we see these stories of girlfriends leaving, engagements being called off. Even my retired psychologist, I remember that he told me, with no details, that he had a client who killed himself after the woman called off the engagement. Now, I can understand being very upset that this is the woman that you were planning on marrying. I mean, that's a devastation to anybody's life, but it's not worth killing oneself over. And I also think that one of the reasons why men fall into despair or have a literally nervous breakdown or turn to suicide after divorce is because, no pun intended, there are no male spaces anymore. And we have this issue now where Men do not have the connections or the bonding that they once did. They do not have the number of friends or even fraternal organizations or places to go to share some of their solace with. I mean, I would assume that if you're going through this tough time, if you have friends that love you and friends that care about you, there is a chance that a man like that who feels loved by his fellow men would not turn to that fatal choice, I believe.
Yeah, male spaces are another. I mean, that's your name online.
Yeah.
And it is a critically important subject. It's why I started XY Crew.
Yes.
Going on 7 years strong now, men's meetings several days a week. And it's amazing the difference that it makes in a guy's life just to have that connection where women aren't allowed, where guys challenge each other, not to shame or control each other, but to challenge each other to meet our own goals and to do what's in our best interest in life. That's real healthy masculine influence. Another shameless plug. Any of you guys out there, check out XY Crew. I think you'll find it a quite amazing place to be. That nearly wraps up our time, Bradley. Let me bring Brian back into the conversation and see if we have any comments or questions to address.
Yes, we do. And you guys can hear me okay, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, we
just
got
fine.
it all figured out eventually. All right.
Yes, we did. Thank God. Thank Brian.
Well, I'm not really exactly sure what I did, but I did get it working, so I'll take it. All right. So super chats. We got Dennis Green gave us $10 Australian. This was in the beginning of the show. And he says, given that princess privilege is embedded in all institutions from education to the helping professions, politics, the law, and mainstream media, how do we correct course without systemic change?
Brad, you want to take first shot at that? I've got some thoughts on it.
Well, systemic change with the question was systemic change with the courts?
No, it was just systemic change generally.
It's embedded in all institutions. So princess privilege is embedded in all institutions from education to the helping professions, politics, the law, and mainstream media. How do we course correct without systemic change?
See that I'm admitting that's that's where I get tongue tied too. I mean,
I don't think we do without systemic change, and I think the system has to break first. I really do. I hate to be so black pill and doomsdayish, but the thing is, he's right. Dennis is absolutely right. Princess privilege, the PPAS, as we affectionately refer to it as, is embedded in higher education, in politics, in family law, in every institution we have in the culture. And even as the culture is currently crumbling around us into dysfunction, we're not changing any of it. I think that system has to break first. I think we have to have a need for strong men that is visible. I mean, right now, society operates by a core, about 25% of jobs overall are blue collar. This is a lot of strong men upholding civilization as we know it, but they're invisible to men and women alike. They're removed for the most part from social consciousness. So people have become detached from the fact that we really do need these guys doing this stuff or we're all kind of screwed. I think it's going to get to the point that it breaks first. I really do. And that maybe out of the ashes, we'll get a better way of doing things. Maybe we'll return to patriarchy. Maybe we'll have strong men emerge again, men who can tell women no and who don't issue the PPAS, who don't issue princess privilege. But I don't see, look at the sheer numbers of simps out there right now. It's absolutely mind-blowing how weak men have become. And that doesn't bode well.
All right. Next super chat, I think I have, from @GoldPill, gives us $10 Australian and says, teach boys to walk out the door as consequence for being disrespected.
Yes. Absolutely. Shout out to the Aussie blokes, man. Thanks for the super chats and the great comments and questions. And I agree with that entirely. The thing that we should be teaching boys is that disrespect from anybody, not just women, but zero tolerance for disrespect. And that doesn't mean punch somebody in the face because they disrespect you. It means withdraw yourself and keep the circles where you are respected and insist on that as a standard in your life. But instead, and I think I covered this a good bit in the monologue, we actually teach boys it's their job to endure disrespect and to suck it up and take it. And that's what makes them a good man.
Right. Bradley, did you want to say anything to that, or is that okay?
I just agree with that. I mean, I'm agree with Paul. Learn to say no. Actually, that's one of the biggest things is simply just saying no, not putting up with mistreatment or disrespect from anybody, man or woman.
Absolutely, it doesn't have to be gendered.
Yeah, I think the most masculine thing you can do is say no. I know that we don't like defining masculinity, but it's mainly
Right.
saying no is like the thing. So you can't define it if I'm saying no, but okay. Super chat from Suvia, who gives us $5 and says, "Fantastic to see the two of you together. The impact of broken homes on children and the future at large is key to making a change, in my opinion."
Thank you, Sevilla. Always good to hear you that you're watching and listening, and I agree with what you're saying entirely. We have simped out on our children.
Yes.
100%.
And it's costing them dearly. But right now, what women want to feel is far more important than children's actual needs. That's how bad society has gotten. We're destroying our kids with this stuff, and women appear to be just fine with it, and for that matter, so do men.
Yes, and also I can just throw out there is that there's complete industries based off of simping. I mean, OnlyFans, I would call it, let's say, a simp product. And to get men to stop simping and to stop simping mostly through social media or their payments towards that company, I don't know how we're going to do that either, because it's simply inflating the egos of women to a catastrophic level. I don't know how we stop men from doing that. I believe that men should be able to, control their libidos. Stop pushing the like button, on every female fitness influencer that you see, and stop. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how we're going to do this. I mean, there are ways to do this, but that's another discussion also.
Yeah, but that's not one of them, right?
Well, not right now. We can actually shut down whatever we want. There's with the will or whatever, but as we said, there are simps that are in the way, meaning that even when we talk about, let's say, people use the term male liberation, it is really, I would think so, liberation from other men, liberation from simps, and also powerful simps. That's really what it is.
And, I'll just point out that on platforms like X, probably 75% of the pushback that I get comes from men. Women know that this game is rigged. They're fully aware of it. And so I think a lot of them are not so quick to speak up. I mean, the feminist women will, because, they don't have a governor on their mouths. They'll say anything. But most of the pushback I get is from other men being chivalrous, talking about my duties and obligations as a man toward women, and basically prescribing a romantic narrative for me to live by. And that's why I think men are more the problem right now than women are. For the matter, women would get in line just fine if men had spines.
Oh, actually, yes. And actually, I believe that's actually just a theory. I actually believe that's what I'm not an expert. I think that's what women want, actually.
Every child wants an adult to set boundaries. And we socialize women as grown children. We don't socialize them to grow up and to be accountable and hold their own and solve their own problems and carry their own weight. We raise them to be dependents that are eternally ready to project blame on the men for whatever personal shortcomings they have. That's what we raise women to be, and it's men doing that. I think it's the princess father doing that.
Yeah. I actually think that it actually creates a lot of frustration in women, actually. That's what I think, yes.
All right. Next, gold pill again with $5 Australian. And they say, Bradley, what practical steps do you recommend to fix the problem of fatherlessness?
That's the step I thought before, but I have no idea. It is what I think should be done, and also what is going to be extremely difficult to do because of the way that the family courts are run and who's in charge. I believe that in the terms of no-fault divorce, nearly all of them initiated by women. So therefore, it would be the father custody 100% in those cases of no fault. In most cases, not all, in most cases, it would be father custody. Just as explained, I'm going to also recommend this book for even further discussion of that, a book discussing this exact question. I recommend that you read the book, The Case for Father Custody by Dr. Dale Linnaeus, which is a scathing condemnation of the court system and feminism. And basically what that I believe will solve most of the injustices towards men, actually. That one move. I'm not sure, but I think it will. Other ways, I do believe that fathers should spend time with each other. I believe that they should actually think about what they're doing. I mean, I'm biased though, but I grew up around many fathers that were checked out. I mean, I'm not here to condemn my whole past or express anger at my past, but I mean, I grew up in a lower middle class area, not high crime per se, but in that kind of blasé environment, you had blasé dads. And so, I mean, it also involves a degree of conscientiousness also. I mean, me personally, I know how I'm going to father my children. I'm going to teach them about the way that institutions run, career trajectories, college admissions, trades. Again, like we were saying before in your lesson that you were saying before I got on, all these things, dealing with adversity, rejection, danger, challenge, forming an identity, cultivating talents. All of those are going to strengthen fatherhood, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think it can be missed on anybody that we now have. And again, I recognize this certainly makes me sound like an old fart, and I am an old fart, but I'm going to say it anyway. We have younger generations coming up right now that honestly think it's a crisis if DoorDash is late, or if their internet goes out for 10 minutes. Or if somebody doesn't listen to them, or if their college doesn't give them a safe space to go watch puppy videos when there's something stressful going on campus. This is the type of weakness that we instill in people by removing masculine influence. And I don't think it corrects until we literally have to have masculine influence to not be eating out of dumpsters.
Yes, I'm also part of a homeschooling fathers group, and I'm part of, let's say, a sort of like we would call it a homeschooling co-op, where we're all like several families that get together and we made friends. Our children are friends with each other now. So, even though we're talking about these bad times now, no one is stopping us from doing that. No one's stopping men from, whether you're a father or not. I'm not saying that, I would hang out. Some of my friends are not fathers. It takes male bonding. All that we discuss here, those are the answers to the question that I think was posed also. All of this, actually. No one's stopping us from doing that. We could take the reins within the limitations that we have right now, I believe.
Fair enough.
Yes.
All right. Suvia sent a flow state for 200 joules. It's some kind of in-game or in-stream gift. So 200 joules.
A flow state from a woman. Okay, I won't touch that one.
Thank you for the 200 joules. Whatever. Don't want to know where they came from.
Whatever that was, I do appreciate it. Thank you.
And lastly, I think this is the last super chat I've got. Official Rev Trad gives us $20 and says, I've met 3 feminists who claim that when a stay-at-home dad gets divorced, the mom should get custody because they think he cannot provide for the children. How many family court judges do you suppose also think that way?
uh,
Do you want me to read it again? Or
Yeah, read it again. Let's make sure we
All
get
right.
this right.
Okay. I have met 3 feminists, maybe not the most relevant part of this, who claim that when a stay-at-home dad gets divorced, the mom should get custody because they think he cannot provide for the children. How many family court judges do you suppose also think that way?
All of them, if the unemployed person is the mother, I mean, they will all tend to give it to the one who's not working. And in most cases, it's the mother. But that doesn't surprise me that feminists think that women should get custody, even though the father's the primary caretaker. What can I say? Feminist hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Well,
Go ahead.
The feminist aim is to get rid of fathers, so that doesn't strike me as a surprise. One or any example of that is really that's the removal of the father, and that's why I recommended that book, The Case for Father Custody, because it just shows the real feminist aim, and that's really one of the top aims. It is ownership of reproduction and child raising. That's really one of the foremost aims.
And I'm pretty sure those same 3 feminists told me that if the father is working, he shouldn't get custody because he won't be available.
Yes, it's actually all sorts of reasons that can be concocted. Exactly, yes.
But whatever it is, the feminist mentality is fathers should not get custody or any authority over the child whatsoever, and they will rationalize any reason whatsoever. And the courts will do their bidding too. I mean, let's not pretend that this is not exactly what courts are doing. They are stripping the father of all authority, all rights. They're stripping the children of their father, reducing him to a visitor, and then they look the other way and whistle when the child's grades start failing, starts acting out in school, starts getting involved in a gang or doing drugs. Then it's like it's the father's fault for not being there. What can I say? This is the double, triple, quadruple standards we all deal with when it comes to feminists and when it comes to just about any form of gynocentrism in romance. It's all about double standards.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. A couple more super chats. They're still coming in, so thank you guys for that.
Yes, thank you very much, all of you.
Yeah, we got another one from Dennis Green 6222 for $5 Australian again.
Thank you, Dennis.
And Dennis says, I just want to thank you guys again for all you do to bring clarity and hope to all boys and men. It's God's work, fellas.
Okay.
Man, my night's complete.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I mean, who can not hear that and not tear up a little bit? I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
All right. And then we have Financial Frontier USA, who gives us 100, I think that's Thai currency, Thai baht.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And says that's 100 of that. And says, much respect to the legend. Thanks to Paul from freeing me from being a warhorse and working mule. You can create your own terms in this life.
Man, I'm getting all kinds of rewards tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir, for the donation and the kind words. Very much appreciated.
All right, that's it for the paid comments. I do have a couple of, I guess, like ones that just sort of jumped out at me. Sufyan Fanon said earlier in the stream, fathers treating their daughters like princesses is a big part of the problem.
I think Sufyan is right.
Yes.
That is the problem. It's treating women as princesses. The mother gets treated that way. The daughters get treated that way. And the boys are told to go look for a woman who wants to be treated that way. This is the perpetual cycle of romance. It's toxic as it can be. And despite the fact that we're watching marriage just being phased out altogether. I mean, people aren't getting married. They're still getting divorced at high rates. Interest in marriage has declined. And who am I to judge it? I mean, speaking as a man, I have no interest in a legal contract with a woman. None at all.
All right. The Bees Are Happy sent in a comment and said, this episode hits harder than most as a father going through the gynocentrism in USA.
Yeah, I know it does. And it's a weighty topic. There is so much pain out there. You know, one of the things that Bradley brought up, and we've discussed this before, the normal suicide differential between men and women is 4-1. That's on a good day. On a good day, 4 times more men take their own lives than women. During a divorce or a breakup, it goes to something around 11-1. That's how heavy this stuff is. And it's stuff that I wish the Manosphere talked more about. We're certainly going to be talking more about it on this podcast. I would like to get some fathers on here that have been to tell their family court story. So by all means, let me take an opportunity. Paul at paulelam.com. If you've got a story about this, I would like to hear it. I'd like to talk to you and perhaps get you on the podcast to share your story with people, because I think sometimes people, and I notice this in a lot of the tradcons out there in social media who haven't been through a divorce, who haven't been through family court, they have no way to relate to it whatsoever. They're totally disconnected. Maybe their marriages are working, or maybe they're just good, obedient little simps at home and never upset the missus, so they feel like they don't have anything to worry about. But when you hear about, courts allowing a woman to trans their kid with surgery at 10 or 12 years old, which has happened in many cases, when you hear about courts that relegate a man to a visiting status, take away all of his authority, turn him into a visitor in the child's life, and allow the mother to poison the child's mind against the father. These stories are worse than you can possibly imagine. When you hear the details, a lot of you have seen with my interview with Cesar Quintana and what he went through traveling to Ukraine during the war, to try to recover his son. The State Department basically told him, tough luck, we're not here for you. People tried to take advantage of him for money, all kinds of things that went on with this, and he still ended up without his son who now lives in Russia. This is what we're creating out there. And you hear these stories, and I've heard 1,000 of them at this point or more, and they don't get better. They keep getting worse. And it makes you wonder why more men aren't offing themselves in the middle of all this. But the courts certainly don't care. And for the most part, society doesn't care. They yawn, shrug their shoulders, and say, oh, well, that's tough luck. You probably picked the wrong woman, or some other grand wisdom like that, that men absolutely do not need when they're going through this horrible time in their lives, courtesy of our court system.
All right. The Heroes Forge sent in a comment and said, y'all are doing great work. Question for Bradley. As a father of younger children in this space, how has your parenting changed as a result of your involvement in our area of work?
Great question.
Well, it's our area of work has, I believe that almost like it feels that all the people that I've met from these spaces, in the short time that I've been here, I've met so many interesting and caring people who have reached out to me. And, if they lived closer to me, I would probably already met them already. It almost seems like I have almost like a support system from this space, and almost it like helps me be a better father, actually, with reading the materials that I've actually mentioned before, or talking right here to you, Paul, and conversing with whoever's at the chat. It's almost like, it kind of almost like enforces me to do the job that I have to do as a father. If that makes any, I think hard to explain, but that's what it is, actually. And also, being that I am fatherless myself, I am also extremely conscientious of what a boy, boys and girls need from fathers, actually, and also to teach them or guide them in all the areas that I was not actually. I mean, in terms of everything, I'm not going to do the sob story here again, but I never got one discussion, literally one discussion on anything in terms of, let's say, a discussion about marriage, a discussion about professions, career trajectories, finance, dealing with teachers, dealing with the government, dealing with institutions, everything about life, actually. Cultivating an identity, even fitness, I figured out for myself, the whole bodybuilding thing. So that's what I have to be very conscientious of. And also this space actually has taught me the importance of fatherhood. That I thought I knew it was important. I missed out on it, but I did not even actually know. I didn't know actually the civilizing effect of fatherhood on society at large until I came to this space. I didn't even know the kind of civilization building element of the institution of marriage. I thought like I had the not necessarily a romantic model, but more like, well, this is what you do. Like, guy likes woman, they get married, you have a kid. I did not know what marriage and fatherhood is for in regards to the broader society until I came across you, Mike from Heroes Forge, talking to everybody about these things. That's how it's benefited me for so much.
I'm gonna respectfully push back on one idea a little bit. I don't see you as fatherless. It is. I mean, I know that's the way you grew up, but somewhere in your life, Bradley, you became a father to yourself. You somehow managed to guide your life to an advanced degree, to becoming an expert in your field, to being a bodybuilder, to taking an interest in these issues, and now you're a well-prepared father doing the right thing. There's a father in there somewhere. I think you gave it to yourself, but I just don't see you as a fatherless man right now. And I think that's what men have to do from fatherless generations. And it's only going to be a small number of them that get it. If the society took fathers away from our children, and we know that happened, the only solution to that for individuals is to find mentors and to use them as kind of father figures and self-parenting, because we don't get taught how to self-parent very much in a fatherless society. We get taught to indulge our instincts and our desires and to see life in terms of grievance, but we don't really learn maturity from this thing. And it's obvious to me that Bradley did, despite the odds being against him. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's probably one of the biggest compliments I've ever had in my entire life. It's really meaningful to me. So I really mean that, actually. Yes. Thank you.
And Bradley, that's about our time. You want to tell people where they can reach you and find your work? Tell them maybe a little bit about the podcast with Stephen too.
Yes, I'm running a series with Dr. Stephen Baskerville. It's called The Mansplainers, where we discuss men's issues and sexual politics. We discuss all sorts of things. And one thing about one characteristic about our series is it's not the typical bitching and moaning of the manosphere. I don't know how else to put it like that, but it's not a bitching and moaning grievance episodes. We talk about serious things. We've had some very interesting people on it, not only from the manosphere, but we had people that talk about men's issues that are not even, let's say, even associated with the manosphere, like Curtis Doolittle, Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson, other people we're going to continue to speaking with. We might have them on again. So I think that you should subscribe to my channel if you really want to understand the more structural issues that men are against, not just this whole dating and sexual gaming thing. I understand that, yes, finding mates, yes, very important, but that's not really the whole. It's a small element of the episode, actually. And also what I plan on doing, I actually plan on coming out when I make the time, not find the time. It's hard to do that when I'm running my life with kids and everything like that and doing those episodes. I also want to come out with more material for male self-actualization in terms of content on friendships, even certain things about fitness, personal finance, career trajectories, mental health, etc. And also maybe like a third pillar of it, maybe just interview anybody I want to. Maybe it's about music or bodybuilders. I'm going to have an interview with my bodybuilding friend in the summer. So anything that interests me as a man, dealing with other men's issues, yes, and even some of the good things too. Not just the bitching, not just what we're talking about here. Yes.
Yeah, there is actually some great things about being a guy.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I kind of like it myself.
Yeah, because I love grilling too. I think that I recall you love grilling as well, and I'm really into barbecuing and even doing some food meal prep things or other fitness oriented things. But that's why I plan on covering what we've been covering. But I also will give you the name of my channel, which is at a male space, and also I'm on X at a male space, and also I started a website, but it's only a page now, like maybe 2 pages, but I'm going to start adding content to it in the future, but you can still look at it. It's in the works, amalespace.com. So those are the places that you can find me at for now. Yes.
And there is a link in the description right now to Bradley's channel. Please go in and subscribe, offer the man some support. He's doing some important work that I think is sorely missing and should be more prominent in manosphere work. If we're talking about men and men's lives, it's more than getting late, guys. Just saying. Just throwing that little tidbit out there for consideration.
Right.
And Bradley, thank you so much for being here. Want to thank the audience, all the super chats, the other comments. Really appreciate it. Next week, we're going to have a little discussion here with a guy named Rollo Tomasi, and Michael Sartain is going to be connecting with Shah and myself. I don't know what we're going to talk about, to tell you the truth. There seems to be a big conflict. I think I know what the conflict is. They may have different ideas, but they will be invited. They are invited here. They've agreed to appear. They'll be treated with respect. We will do our best. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could be a great discussion. It might be a fireworks match. It might be a dud. Who knows what's going to actually happen with it? But that's next week here on the 8th of July at 8 p.m. We're going to have Michael Sartain and Rollo Tomasi, and we're going to be talking about the manosphere and men's priorities and a few other things, I'm sure. With that, again, I want to thank everybody. Wish you the best. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, even if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Support the channel. Stay strong.